report that the illegal lab was run by Prestige Biotech, a Chinese company registered in Nevada. The company's president is Xiuqin Yao. NBC reported that all biological agents were destroyed by July 7th. Hong Kong activists are hoping for free elections. The committee shared its mission in Washington, D.C. last week. It's looking to establish a political body free from the manipulation of the Chinese Communist Party and give Hong Kong citizens a way to vote without fear. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg reports.
That's not going to happen.
The goal of the Hong Kong Parliament Electoral Organizing Committee is to hold safe, credible elections internationally. Elections guaranteed to be free of the Chinese Communist Party's control.
Hong Kong is like a police state, and the national security law is like martial law in Hong Kong. But people don't relate to that. So, in fact, we lost all our freedom, rule of law, and democracy. So we need to do something.
The idea is inspired by the Tibetan Parliament in exile. Elmer Yuen, the initiator of the committee, says according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Hong Kongers have the right to vote for their own government to determine their own future. He says now all branches of Hong Kong's government, including the district council, is being totally manipulated by Beijing.
They are afraid of competition for control of China and its people. So we want to do is we want to wrestle the power to the people, not by the elite or not by the Communist Party members.
UN says the U.S. needs to make a choice about Hong Kong.
We need to get rid of the Communist Party once and for all, at all price, because it's not only the Hong Kong people or the Chinese people. The whole world is affected. Look at COVID. It's horrible. And look at the fentanyl here. It's killing so many people. They must make up their mind and do away with CCP once and for all.
Election regulations are set to be established next month. The committee has asked all Hong Kong elected representatives who held office before July 2020 to participate in the upcoming parliament election slated for later this year. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Japanese restaurants in Beijing are bearing the brunt as China controls on Japanese food imports. Some owners are reporting numbers down by up to 90%.
Unlicensed and unregulated, it did not properly store biological material, medical waste, and infectious agents. The way they were disposed of also violated state law. They found nearly 1,000 mice. Most were euthanized and the rest were already found dead. The mice were raised in overcrowded cages with a lack of food and water. A person associated with Prestige Biotech informed the investigators that these mice were genetically engineered to catch and carry the COVID-19 virus. Between May 2nd through May 4th, CDC agents found E. coli, Streptococcus pneumonia, hepatitis B and C, herpes 1 and 5, and rubella. In a declaration, Assistant Director of Fresno County Public Health, Humero Prado, said city staff communicated via email with Xu Qinyao, supposedly the president of Prestige Biotech, back in March. City staff requested Ms. Yao provide any licenses or certifications permitting the experimentation on and breeding of these mice. Ms. Yao and Prestige Biotech failed to provide any certifications or licenses from any state or federal agency for storage and experimentation on mice and other laboratory activities at the property. A reporter with the Epoch Times visited the site. Residents told him the business has not been in operation for at least 5 months, but noticed that someone is living in the building. They found individual phone numbers and addresses in China, but did not confirm that they have connections to business in California.
In late February, he changed his mind. He didn't think we needed lockdowns. Suddenly he decided we needed them. We also need to know about that proximal origin paper that he was involved in commissioning and pumping and advocating for the entire world. So it opens up a ton of questions. And I think full accountability just means getting to the truth.
And what do you think that is? Why do you think all these changes on Fauci's part?
Thank you for asking that. I can't say for sure, but I am almost certain, and I've felt this way for some time, that somehow Fauci's decision to lock down the country and follow the CCP model of pandemic control is related somehow to his cover-up of his relationship with the EcoHealth Alliance and the funding of the Wuhan lab. I'm not entirely sure how it's related, but something happened to Fauci between say late January and late February to cause him to change his mind and become the nation's biggest advocate of ending the Bill of Rights and restricting all Americans' freedom and destroying our economic lives. And we're still suffering from that decision. So we'd like to know a little bit more about how those things were related. It seems like it was related to a cover-up, but it's hard to know for sure without more information.
Further investigation required for sure. Thank you so much, Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute and author of Liberty or Lockdown.
Striking New York.
We could have prevented the job loss and the death and the sickness and disease around the world had China not lied.
How did we get here?
This decision will go down as the most consequential and the most dangerous mistake in history.
Be careful raising a baby tiger, because one day it will grow up and eat you.
What's the cure for the CCP virus?
Indictments, and all they're doing is hoping for massive election interference. That's all they want to do.
Trump condemning the latest indictments in the rally this past weekend.
Everything that happened,
expects another indictment to come any day now,
the impeachment of Donald Trump, both of them, is to cover up Joe Biden's activities in Ukraine,
Mar-a-Lago property manager Carlos de Oliveira
getting the everything's dirty about him, man.
He appeared in a Miami
and people
court
call
for
me
the first
crazy.
Today and is expected
People that were
next week.
voted for Joe Biden, you are the crazy ones.
Has reportedly spent over
Good
$40
God.
million on legal fees.
This building in D.C. with the details.
Devon Archer left the building without commenting or answering questions from reporters after giving an hours-long testimony to House Oversight Committee members on his firsthand knowledge with regards to Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. The big question here is whether he said anything that Republicans can use as evidence to start an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Now, most Republicans left without coming to speak to reporters. The one Republican that we did get a hold of, Congressman Andy Biggs, said that Archer testified that Burisma would have gone out of business a lot sooner had the Biden brand not been invoked. Now, what exactly does that mean? Another congressman, a Democrat, Dan Goldman, said that Hunter Biden sold the illusion of access to his father when he served as vice president by finding ways to take credit for things that he actually had no involvement in.
Such as when Vice President Biden went to Ukraine on his own, Hunter said, well, let's tell them that I have no idea what's going to happen, but I can take credit for the fact that he's going.
Now, there was a lot of focus on roughly 20 instances where Archer said he witnessed Hunter Biden call his father and put President Biden on speakerphone and asked him to say hello to his guests, which sometimes were his business associates. But Archer says in those conversations, they didn't speak about business at all. It was mainly just, nice talk, very polite speaking, nothing very directly involved with business, but we will know more from what Archer had to say when that written transcript becomes available in the coming days. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
He's also co-host of the epic TV show Truth Over News. Jeff, welcome to our show. Thanks for coming on. Joe Biden has been saying for a long time that he hasn't had anything to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings. But here, during this hearing, it seems to be that there have been evidence coming out to the contrary. Could you tell us what's your take on what we're learning so far?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. We weren't even sure if Devon Archer was going to show up to this meeting, but he did. We weren't sure if he was going to answer questions. He did. We now know that Joe Biden was on at least 20 different phone calls with Hunter Biden and his business associates. And this is really important because we've now gone through this incredible evolution where Joe Biden initially said, I never talked to Hunter Biden about his business. Then we had this slight shift. Well, I never talked to Hunter's business associates. Now we know that he was on 20 different phone calls. So I talked to everybody, but it was just niceties. It was just pleasantries. That's the current narrative. But of course, we can all see where this is going. And a lot of this originated just at the last week. There was a new report that Joe Biden was on a conference call with Hunter Biden and Devin Archer, the man who testified today, and the owner of Burisma and his associate, Burisma's top executive. And it was an emergency meeting that was called after a Burisma board meeting. Well, it turns out that meeting just so happened when the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times began their investigative looking into Hunter Biden's connections with Burisma. So the very same day that information comes out, what happens? The owner of Burisma contacts Hunter and asks him to get his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, on the phone on a conference call to go over what almost certainly had to be their strategic response to those two articles, which a flurry of emails that happened after that meeting show us that's exactly what they did.
Americans recently have seen their leaders embroiled in multiple scandals and investigations. What do you think would need to happen in this case to help restore trust in our leaders?
I mean, that's $1 million question. I frankly don't know the answer to that. I think trust has been so destroyed at this point. And it's not just in our leaders, but it's in our federal government, and it's in all of the agencies that comprise our government. And in my opinion, that's part of what is going on right now, is the protection that surrounded Joe Biden is not so much to protect Joe Biden himself or even to protect Joe's presidency, but it's to protect the people that stood behind that, such as Obama, but also the way of doing business in D.C. That's been going on for decades now. It's not something that I think they want the public to get an insider's view on. So I think a lot of it has to do with that.
And you've said that these recent revelations point to, could provide more information on what we know about Russiagate. Could you speak to that?
Well, I've been kind of evolving in my theory on that I've begun to think that Russiagate may actually have been a response to cover up Biden's misdeeds in Ukraine. And the correlation of when Biden wrapped up everything with the Ukrainian prosecutor, got the new prosecutor in, all of that dovetails neatly, perfectly into when the attacks began on Trump. And, if everything that we believe to be true, and each day is showing things, more and more things to be true, if all of those things are correct and accurate, then surely Joe Biden had an enormous vested interest, as did Obama, to ensure that all of the activities in Ukraine never saw the light of day. And the last thing they wanted to happen was to have an outsider come into Washington and start poking around. And it's also worth bearing in mind that, not only did the establishment sort of rise up against Trump beginning in the early summer of 2016, they also had an absolutely outlandish response to a single phone call to the then Ukrainian president, and inquiring about Biden's activities in Ukraine. So we're beginning to shift our thinking and thinking that that's really the genesis of Russiagate, is that it was to cover up Biden's activities in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Jeff Carlson, investigative journalist and co-host of Truth Over News on Epic TV.
Yes, thank you.
I lost that mic already. The mic fell down into my...
We meet again about
If you want to know specifically what I would do with the CIA,
yeah, I'd love to know.
The dangerous part of the CIA is the plans division, controlling the media, doing all this mischief and monkey business around the world.
All the stuff with the CIA and his computer. Hold on a second.